Hello, and welcome to another edition of Ask a CFO. Back here again with James Vanreusel. Morning, James.
Morning, James. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Yeah, looking forward to this one. It's got a very interesting question in here for you today. I'm gonna dive straight in with it, so we can really pick your brains immediately. What are the main challenges for a growing company as they approach an audit?
That's a very good question. I think it really depends on how good the accounting has been up until then. If it's their first audit, you'll want to choose the right audit firm for sure. One that is willing to work with you. And I think one of the the key things with anything is to start early. So start early, start well. And I think the way to start early and to start well, and this was, I gave this advice to another company yesterday, was get the auditor in at least 6 months before they actually start the audit. So if you want to be doing a 2020 audit, don't hire them in March of 2020 to do the audit by June of 2020. March of 2021. To finish by June 30 of 2021, which is, a good start point and an end point, but hire them 6 months before that in, let's say now, in September, October of 2020, because then if you have questions about your accounting, you can go to them and say, hey, we have these 3 issues. We're not we think it should be accounted this way, but we're not 100% sure. And then they'll lay out their opinion. And then when it comes up during the audit, it's already been resolved and it's a non-issue. So that is, my first piece of advice is start early, start well. The other thing is, as well as, make sure you have a solid finance manual. Make sure that what's written down is actually what you're doing, because the auditors will, that's how they check the narrative. And then the other thing that I see as being an issue quite frequently is the equity in for-profit companies, where things can get pretty complicated, especially if the company has been around for 4 or 5 years. There have been different equity instruments, different equity issues, and now it's being audited for the first time, and the audit firm has to go back 4 or 5 years and roll the whole thing forward. With interest payments and discounts and all kinds of things. And that's very tricky work to do correctly. And so the auditors will probably spend quite a bit of time working on that. But getting that first audit done is really, really important.
Does it get easier over time?
I think so. Once you have the right accounting team in place, you have that annual audit. You switch up auditors every several years, so there's a fresh pair of eyes looking at things, and the controls are already in place. Things should run relatively smoothly. Any company that is scaling quickly, by definition, things break every year. So you do have to keep looking at stuff, keep fixing stuff. The stakes get higher as you add zeros to the bank account and the balance sheet. But in general, it does get easier.
So if somebody's starting on day one now, starting their business right away, then what can they do to make that first audit easier? You mentioned a finance manual, sort of keeping track of everything. What else can they do in terms of systems, in terms of the people they're bringing in to make that headache just that little bit less?
Yeah, I mean, if you're just starting out, or you're still a small company, I would definitely make sure that you have a high quality accounting firm that you're working with. So outsource it. Tons of them out there, different price points, different geographic locations, but just make sure that you're closing the books every month. The accounting firm should be able to produce a finance manual for you. Make sure you understand everything. Make sure you're signing everything and that you understand how the cash is moving through the system. That I would say that is that's step number one.
Mm. How useful is the audit then in identifying fixes that you need to apply within your finance system?
Yeah, so it is very useful. It is extremely useful when you have international operations and you are not physically present. For a firm to come in and really just do the nitty gritty work of checking everything, and having a fresh pair of eyes. It's also very useful just to go through and see if you've missed anything, if there are any recommendations. It's also very useful just to keep people on their toes. If they know there's an audit coming, there's less likely to be any kind of shenanigans happening. And if there is a lot of cleanup work to do, you can always have the external auditor come in every quarter to do a pseudo internal audit that isn't official, but they come in and audit segments of the company. And so that also keeps different teams on their toes. So some of it's just keeping people on their toes to do the right thing at the right time.
I'm just reading a book at the moment called The 12-Week Year, which is all about compressing your year down into 4 mini years of 12 weeks each. And one of the main reasons for doing that is that you're permanently putting pressure on yourself because you're always sort of coming to year end. And it seems to me this is kind of the same thing as if you've always got an internal audit going on, or you've got this sort of pseudo audit happening. Same thing, that you're just sort of adding that additional pressure so that everybody's working at their peak. Sounds like, something like that.
Yeah. And I'm talking about, smaller companies, maybe mid-sized companies. Once you get to, larger companies like Walmart, they have their own internal audit team, right? The big companies have that. That's automatic. That gets done all the time.
Excellent. Great. Thank you very much for that, James. Really appreciate your time today. And we'll be back next time. In the meantime, if you have a question for James, then please let us know. Just drop it in the comments below, or hashtag #AskACFO. You can ask us on Twitter, ask us on Facebook, ask us anywhere you like. We'll find it. Thanks very much, James. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.